And this brother here has put a statement in here I want you to address. And he says that Johnny, native people in Sierra Leone and Liberia were slave traders. So get to the roots of your misinformation. They didn't want to see the people they enslaved return. This is a very controversial statement. What
It
does he
is.
mean by this? Talk to me, explain, because I need some clarity from
Yeah,
your
man.
perspective.
Yeah, man. So I mean, we know that. We understand that there were collaborators here. That slavery happened here. You have one of the
Okay.
main slave fortresses in Upper Guinea along the Rice Coast, right here, called Bunce
Yes.
Island. You have others
Okay.
like Shabo Island, Tasso Island, other islands off the coast that the Europeans used as fortresses in order to carry out the slave trade. And what I'll say is this. Yes, you have those who were actively involved in the transatlantic slave trade of our people. But you also have those who actively resisted. And
Resisted,
you
yes.
have, but we don't tell those stories. We only talk about those few. That's like telling the story only of the drug dealers in the hood. You don't tell the
Yes.
success stories. You don't talk about the people who become barbers, open a barber shop. You don't talk about the
No.
people who avoid the streets and
Yes.
go to school and become back to the community as teachers. You don't tell the success stories. You just focus on the fact that some people were actively engaged in slave trade. Now, what I learned about the slave trade in my studies is that in the mid 1400s, the Pope Nicholas V declared
Yes.
war on Africa and African people, and that war took on many, many, many different waves and expressions all the way up until now. This war of
Yes.
discovery, this age of discovery, is the foundation for everything we're living in now, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so we understand that there was a war. Father Elijah used to say that there was no slave trade. There was an invasion of Africa.
Hmm.
That if we can't talk about the slave trade without pretexting it with the invasion. That who invited these navigators to our shores,
Yes.
and how did they truly conduct themselves when they were here? If they are the only ones who have a written record, right? And so we can't just believe what was written by them. We have to also understand that the basis, the context for African people engaging in that, many times it was communities that were already being attacked and were being held hostage in exchange for people that they would bring. And we don't truly understand it, but one of the things that they did as well was they immediately pulled the mulatto factor in West Africa. Here, you have certain ethnic groups and certain families that are mixed race. And they also was heavily engaged in the slave trade, but we never talk about the mixed race slave traders. We never talk about the middlemen, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were here. They were mercenaries, missionaries, and traders. That's what they were, merchants. And so when you examine the slave trade up close, you realize that there were other players there that we don't necessarily always recognize. And then
Mm-hmm.
also, yes, shame and hell to any African who truly participated in the demise of other Africans, even till this day. But we
Yes.
also got to know that if the European doesn't come here and attack Africa, there is no transatlantic slave trade. Africa was assaulted first before any exchange happened. And
Yes.
we say trade, but that's reducing our ancestors to commodities,
Exactly.
right?
It was kidnapping.
So we weren't
Kidnapping.
traded, we were trafficked. We were trafficked. We were scientists, we were scholars, we were fishers, we were hunters, we were agriculturalists, we were men, women, children, husbands, wives, fathers, mothers. We weren't slaves or commodities to be traded. We were African people, and we still are. And so when we correct the identity of those who were stolen away, then we can get down to who sold who. How can you sell a prisoner of war? If it was war and these people are prisoners of war, when did they become commodities, trade items? These are prisoners of war. Wars that were stimulated as a consequence of Europe's invasion of West Africa. When you look at 1591, when the Moroccans invaded Songhai Empire, they occupied Timbuktu, they occupied Jenny, they also attacked the remnants of the Mali Empire. And they couldn't hold it because the resistance was too heavy. But what they did manage to do was shut down the trans-Saharan trade. The trans-Saharan trade route had gone for thousands of years prior to that. So now the people in the Sahel and the Sahara region, we don't have an outlet for our trade. So guess where everyone is running to trade now? The coast. Trade had never gone to the coast until the European got there. And so not only did they shut down our northern trade, but they also gave us no other option but to trade westward. And that caused a population shift, that caused migration, that caused wars over land. People who had different languages didn't view each other as the same people. So it wasn't Africans enslaving Africans. A lot of times this was African people from different kingdoms who were both in refuge and contesting over land, contesting over power.
And the Arabs and the Europeans took advantage of these situations.
Absolutely, because if we're being honest about it, right? In 1235, when Sundiata Keita established the Mali Empire, they held a big conference. They held a big convention. At that convention, they established what they called the Mandang Charter or the Mandang Kuru Faba, and in it was like the UN Charter almost, but for the Mali Empire, right? The rights, how things are supposed to go, and everything like that, right? And one of them was the abolishing of slavery. The abolishing of slavery. If slavery didn't exist all the way back in 1235, then there wouldn't have been no need to abolish it.
Yes.
So when we talk about slavery in West Africa, we have to know that we're talking about different forms. We're talking about different types, different times. Right now, if a person in America is found guilty of a crime, they can be enslaved, or they can be temporarily locked up and lose all of their human rights, basic civil rights, and they have to also perform labor while they're incarcerated, or they won't get out.
Correct. That's correct.
What is the difference? It's a different form of the same slavery, right? So if slavery is viewed as a captivity, form of a punishment of a crime or captivity during a war, then we need to really say that and stop feeding into the white supremacist narrative of our ancestors being commodities that could just easily be sold like so. When you see the amount of resistance from capture to the fortresses, to the slave ships, to the plantations, you realize that we never were enslaved, that they attempted to enslave us, but they never truly enslaved all of us. And so they failed in that department. It's just like if you are attempting to put me under arrest and I am resisting and you have failed to put me under arrest, you cannot say that I'm under arrest. You can say you attempted to put me under arrest and I resisted. And that's the only thing the European can say. It's the only thing the Yoruba can say about African people. In reality, we give them a victory that they haven't fought for. They didn't beat us yet.
Yes, and this is why the Lions have to tell our own story, because